Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Monday, August 11th. We've got some more camp intel notes and tidbits to talk about today. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive line, defensive line, and a whole bunch of other information that Jamie was able to gather in South Bend, that Frank was able to gather in South Bend, and that Matt Freeman has been able to gather as well. It is a Monday, normally a power hour day, but Mike is traveling back from South Bend, so we'll have to get him on a show. It might just be power hour. We'll push to next week. He'll talk about everything that he kind of picked up in South Bend, and then and then we'll keep the show rolling. So we've got Hit and Hustle today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, so whenever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast, as always, are in the description below. The show is brought to you, of course, by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ's master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. Jamie, we've got some breaking news. The AP poll is out. The AP preseason poll is out. Notre Dame comes in at number 6, as Chris Walls puts in the chat. You know what, Chris Walls? I appreciate it. I don't have to go searching through Twitters and all that other stuff. You're putting it in here. I appreciate your attendance and your contributions to the show. Notre Dame, number 6. It's Texas at 1, Penn State 2, Ohio State 3, Clemson 4, Georgia 5 in front of Notre Dame in that order. Jamie, fair? Notre Dame at 6? Fair to you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think you could put them anywhere, in that kind of like top, they should be in like the top 6, I think, like, somewhere like, even if you put them at 8, like who cares? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really matter. I think it's fair. I think it's one of these things where preseason rankings in a lot of ways dumb. Extremely dumb, like, because it not reflective. There's so many teams that were ranked last year that don't end up being ranked. And that happens quite a bit. But I think it is good. I saw this argument for it, why preseason rankings are good. And I'm like, this kind of makes sense. If you're looking at it and you're just a casual fan and you see number 6 Notre Dame or number 5 Notre Dame, I know they're number 5 in the coach poll, versus number 10 Miami, which they're number 10 in both polls.
Yeah.
Top 10 matchup seems like a pretty easy thing to promote.
Yeah.
And I think in that way, it's kind of good.
Yeah. You got Miami at 10. You've got Texas A&M at 19. Notre Dame opens the season with number 10 and number 19. You got Boise State at 25, Jamie. That's interesting. That's something to track. And then others receiving votes. You got USC about 5th in that. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun year for Notre Dame. So that's interesting. I don't have a problem with it. Like you said, 5, 6. I said I think I said on the show I view Notre Dame as a top 6 program in college football. So they come in at number 6, right? I think you could put them anywhere between like 4 and 6. So that's the deal. DE, I had to change the setting on my mic. Hopefully that's better for everybody. Well, let's talk about camp, Jamie. And look, let's just get to the quarterbacks right now, because I think it's the most topical thing, and I think it's kind of the top of mind for everybody. The intel that we're getting on this is it's basically 50-50 right now. And I think that's kind of all over the place. The quarterbacks are even. And my impression, just not necessarily based on what people are saying, but just kind of gathering all the information. Like Matt put out an update on IrishSportsDaily.com yesterday on his Sunday reflections. Just kind of talking to other people who have been at practice and things like that. It sounds to me Jamie, that Kenny Minchie is has been where Notre Dame thought he was or thought he would be heading into camp, and he's been kind of as advertised. I think CJ Carr looked better in the spring, according to these people, not according to me. Obviously, I haven't seen him. CJ Carr looked better in the spring. He looked better in summer workouts. And then he hasn't looked as good as people thought he would. That progression hasn't really come through. And so that's why it's evened out. I'm wondering if, first of all, before we kind of analyze what that might mean or whatever, I'm kind of curious as if that's your read as well, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, that has been my read, and it's what I've heard. And also, like, you know, I'm just going to reiterate that, like, before any of this started, the people that had it as a slam dunk for CJ Carr, that's just not what we had heard. That is not what we had heard during the spring, during the summer. There were still a lot of people who said that, you know, they thought Kenny Minchie was going to win the job. There were people, like credible people, that we know had been saying this. So I think that's one of those things where it had to be, you got to go out and win it. And you don't win it in the summer when you're throwing against air. You don't. And you don't win it even at the beginning of camp, right? So it doesn't matter that it's like he had the, you know, a better day than CJ Carr on the first day. Who cares about the first day? Like, it's not a big deal. But you have to stack days in a row, and you have to have trust, as it's something that it's like they talked about, and I know JB talked about it. John Bryce, you know, he was on the pod late last week when I was traveling. He, you know, talked about trust because that's what Freeman has said, but that is something that anyone who has played ball knows, that you don't get put out there unless the coaches trust you.
Yeah.
And especially at this level, because like jobs are on the line, like playoff spots, there's so much money involved now with everything. Not that it's always been like that, but it's even more so now. So you can't take a risk on something if you don't trust that person. It's exactly why Tay Johnson isn't the slam dunk guy at safety yet, even though he's made the most plays. And I don't know, maybe CJ Carr has made more impressive throws than Minchie in camp. It doesn't matter if they can't trust him on enough of the other plays, right? And I think right now they wanted one of the guys to go out and win it, and none of the guys have done it yet, or else it would kind of be done by now. And the people who thought it would be done by now all just assumed CJ Carr was going to win it. And it just hasn't happened yet. And it's not to say that he won't be great or he won't win it. Like, it happens during the course of the thing. Like, I've seen it a bunch of times where guys have struggled early and then all of a sudden it clicks for them. And it could be just as a simple thing as confidence.
Yeah.
Where, hey, you put one day together and then, yeah, like I said, you start stacking good days together. So, I mean, Raymond Horton, CJ Carr starts. Maybe. And all these people who put this kind of stuff like that, no, you don't know. You're just guessing. That's all anyone is doing. And that's just what it is at this point.
Yeah, I think it's happening in real time. You know, who can say? Like, they have practices between now and the next time the media gets to see them. You know, it's happening in real time. So I think, you know, there's a question here. Is it fair? Isaac K says, is it fair to say most people only assume Carr because of the recruiting ranking? I don't think that's fair. I think that's probably true of fans. But, like, I think fans have been led by the tenor of what the media coverage has been for the last 2-3 months on it, is that it was expected that CJ Carr was going to win the job, right? And there was a reason for that. Like, people aren't just making it up. Like, they have heard that he looked really good in the spring. He looked really good in summer, right? That Notre Dame has been excited about him, right? But, like, what did we say, right? Right before camp started, spring and summer workouts are not camp. It isn't. And you got to get in and you got to do it in camp. And if you don't do it in camp, then none of that rest of it matters. And like you're talking about trust and we're talking about all of that. And like when you hear things or when you get in a situation where it's like, hey, Kenny Minchie has been what they expected him to be, that's a known. That's something in his kind of locker that they have. He's a known in the sense that they know what they're kind of getting. If you expect something from a quarterback and you're not getting it, that's when it's kind of like, I don't know, right? Like that's when you get the trust issues of putting someone out in a game. I am not saying that CJ Carr is not earning the trust or whatever it might be. All I'm saying is that it just hasn't been what they expected. The growth that they expected to come from spring, from summer workouts to now hasn't come. There have been interceptions. Now, I think Matt was very kind of clear to point out, like Notre Dame is throwing interceptions, taking shots down the field. And there have been a few, more than a few, right? Now, I think for me, and I put it in our little group chat thing, because Matt put out the intel piece on the board, and then we talked about it afterwards. So like Matt truly doesn't tell us anything that our subscribers don't also get. There are no secrets when it comes to that stuff. So, we talked about it, and look, there's always that thing of that Notre Dame's, they're going against great defensive backs, right? Great defensive backfield, right? If Notre Dame wants to take shots and they want to be a deep shot team, and you're doing that against a defensive backfield that we think is very good, that has been very good, then you should throw interceptions, because you should not be going against a defensive backfield that is good and they continually give up deep balls over their heads. That should not happen. If you're going against them, you should be throwing picks. It doesn't. Now, that is sort of thing needs to be analyzed by the coaches. We cannot. The fact that they're throwing interceptions, to me, is not super red flaggy because of the types of routes they're throwing. Deep balls are not meant to be 50% completions. These are 35% completion percentage passes, maybe 40%. And when you hit them, they're big for you, but they're not meant to be that. You should be throwing interceptions against a good defense if you continually to test them down the field, right? So I don't. The fact that they're throwing picks on those type of routes is not super red flaggy to me. What did you have a thought on kind of that thought process?
No, that's part of it. Like they want to be more of a downfield passing. They are like extremely limited what they could do last year in terms of throwing the ball deep, and part of it was that a confidence in the receiver group, and then a confidence in the quarterback and him adjusting, Riley Leonard adjusting. But you have to try this stuff now because you have to see whether or not you're going to gain trust for these guys to do it when it's real games, right? And that's why I think it isn't concerning, because you're learning who you are.
Yeah.
Like you learn who you are right now. And, I saw someone throwing the thing that, Miami's going to load the box and do this. Yeah. Yeah. They're going to be like, hey, we don't want Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in Notre Dame's running game to beat us. I mean, they'd be dumb to be like, nah, we're going to play with a light box and see if we can stop them with less bodies there.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Because I think this came up. I don't think it came up with JB. I think it came up on the Wednesday show when it was just me with the chat. Is that not to Notre Dame's benefit? We know that CJ Carr, first, one thing I've heard about CJ Carr is his deep ball is very, very good. Is it not beneficial to him and Kenny Minchie to load the box, and then the reads are very, very self-evident? It makes the reads a lot easier. It definitely plays into Notre Dame's hands in that way. It's like, oh, I have a heavy box here. I have a one-on-one shot. I'm going to take it. Now you're just putting it on their talent rather than their decision-making. I think that makes it a little bit different. So just wanted to kind of talk about that.
It definitely does. Well, that's one of the things too, is you have to, Mike Denbrock, he has to play it a certain way where if you know this is how a team's going to play you, you know, and you know exactly what you're going to get, that makes life as a play caller so much easier. The worst thing that can happen is for someone to be like completely unpredictable, and then you don't know what you're going to get because, you know, that's why you do a lot of like certain things like motions and certain formations, because you want it to be predictable. You want to know like, hey, this is how they handle it. So, but don't get me wrong, like there's going to be like a feeling out process at the beginning of the game. Like there's going to be a for both teams, right? Like, I don't think that like, I mean, I trust that if it's third and medium, third and long, like they are going to come after the quarterback. I'm fairly confident that's going to happen a high percentage of times. But I think they'll do a lot of different other things to kind of like, you know, mix things up as well, right? And they also don't want to get into a situation where they're selling out and then you're getting one guy gets beat and it's a house call, right? So there's a give and take with it as well that is going to happen in the game. But of course they're going to be, you know, trying to stop the run first. Like that's who all these teams are, or they're going to come in with that mindset. But it's like that mindset was the same as the mindset that everyone had last year against Notre Dame. And, you know, the offense was still pretty effective. It's just if they can, you know, find that level of consistency, you know, with the passing game. And the thing is that I don't expect them, you know, I know it's pretty much a new secondary at Miami. Last year, definitely like Adams' pass defense wasn't good. Like they were extremely underwhelming. There's still going to be, you know, ups and downs in the first little bit. I mean, might even be half a season of that with the passing game. It's just you have to have enough in the passing game to be able to win and to be able to score and do all these things. And sometimes too, that might be like, hey, look, like they passed early against Louisville. They weren't doing much later, but then they found a way to like scheme up some stuff there, right? Where they ran like, you know, the fake screen, you know, with the slot going to Harrison. Then they ran the other, you know, little throwback screen to Love that went for a touchdown. Like you got to find ways to do it. I do think like if I'm looking at matchups in that game, and I have obviously started looking way deeper into Miami now than I have been previously, especially now that camp's going on. Notre Dame's backs versus their linebackers. I like the matchup mid coverage. Like I think that's something that Notre Dame can take advantage of.
And this is not Mike Denbrock's first day. You know, he knows how to take advantage of those things, and he knows how to put his players into, you know, key matchups, right? Like he was so good at this at LSU with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. So, you know, Notre Dame's got the weapons. And I think the other part of, you know, a major part of the intel piece that Matt put out was like Notre Dame is very, very excited about Malachi Fields and Will Pauling. I mean, I think there's real, you know, excitement. There's been a lot of Malachi Fields buzz for a couple months now, just in terms of how he looks. But I think the way that he's performed in practice has people very excited. I think the Will Pauling situation is also kind of budding there. And so Notre Dame is very excited about those guys. Just kind of talk about what you've seen from Pauling from a movement standpoint, right? And then we could talk about, you know, what it means from a, you know, lineup and what Notre Dame can put out there on a you know, down-to-down basis when if it's going to be Fields, Greathouse, and Pauling with Faison then, you know, kind of backing him up at that point.
I mean, I think he's a really good athlete. Like he's, you know, in terms of like short area quickness and stuff, like kind of fits the mold of exactly what you want. I think the main problem with Pauling is that he fits the guy what you want out of a slot. Like, you know, just in terms of his skill set, I don't think he's like a natural at the field, which is a little bit of like Faison too. I think both those guys are both better in the slot. It just so happens that they have Jaden Greathouse in the slot, and he's better than both of them. So that's kind of where they're at there. At that position, it's not to say that I think Faison's going to be better, especially that he's healthier. This year at the field when he's got like another year of it. But I think that like Pauling, like I'm very excited about like everything you hear about Pauling. First of all, his work ethic and all that, just like how he's like
he's sleeping in the building, Gene.
Yeah. I think all of that kind of stuff is great. That is like, he's a culture setter, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you want to kind of bring into the program. And I think they've done a really great job of that, of like finding those guys. And they felt like they were better at that on defense than they were on offense in terms of getting the right, like kind of culture setters. But like, I would say Fields and him are both guys that, elevate Notre Dame, not just from a talent perspective, but elevate from like a culture perspective of like, those guys can be leaders in the room. Like, and I don't know if I would say that. I'm not disparaging like, Chris Mitchell or Collins or anything like that. Not that their work ethic or anything like that. I'm just saying in terms of like, when you hear about like mentorship and all this, you hear a lot more about what those guys are doing in terms of mentorship. And also like, nobody called any of those guys a dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like when in a positive sense in
right.
what Marcus Freeman described, Pauling as, right. And I think that's, a great thing, because that's the kind of thing that when we're talking about these young guys, I think that was like so missing from Notre Dame. Just didn't have enough of that. Like the examples, one of the reasons why they've been so good at linebacker is because they've had guys who are like, this is the standard. This is what you got to do. And they've shown the next guys. And that's why guys have just kept going, and it's kept growing in terms of leadership and the communication and understanding of like what you need from the position. And I think about, there's so many years from Notre Dame at receiver where they didn't have that. And I think Jaden Thomas was certainly like a really good, like, did a good job of like kind of stepping into that role last year and being like more of a leader, and certainly like a selfless guy, right? Like in terms of, his role on the team. But who else was there that was like a Jaden Thomas in the room? They probably don't. You need more of those guys. And now that you have like, Greathouse is obviously going in his third year. Everybody knows how hard he works, right? And you have those two other guys that you brought in. That's going to make guys like Gilbert, Williams, Burris, etc., like all these young guys, Saldate, all those guys better because of it.
Yeah. And the good part too is, the fact that Notre Dame continues to take these shots in practice. Obviously, they feel like this is going to be a major part of their offense, right? That the fact that they keep trying it out, right? They're, as they say, the Raptors are testing the fences, right? Like they want to know what can work and what can't. And I think the other part of it too is I felt like last year, they were younger. Faison was just a sophomore. Jaden Greathouse was just a sophomore, right? Like those guys, they were counted on for these bigger roles, but they weren't upperclassmen. And now you have Greathouse, who not only is an upperclassman, is a junior now, but like he performed on the biggest stages that you can have in the sport. Same thing with Jordan Faison, right? And now you have Malachi Fields, who's in a contract year. Now you have Will Pauling, who's in a contract year. So that's four guys, upperclassmen, who have been through it, who have played major college football, who have played only major college football, right? And that was one thing with Chris Mitchell that he didn't have. He had some good performances against major college teams, but like not every week he wasn't doing that, right? Like Will Pauling caught 9 passes against Alabama, like these are some of the best defensive secondaries that you can face. And he was able to perform against those teams. And so that has me pretty excited. The other part too is, Matt wrote a lot about Elijah Burris and how he looks, wrote a lot about Logan Saldate and how he looks, right? Micah Gilbert is still there learning. Like they have not just their top 4 guys, but then they have another 3 guys. You still have KK Smith, right? And I think people like way too much of the fact that he tried to make a diving catch in the first practice. The ball popped up in the air, was intercepted. And it's like it becomes this narrative of like KK Smith made this terrible drop. Like he's literally diving.
Oh, yeah. It was not
it's not.
Were people making a big deal out of that?
It when you listen, it becomes a narrative of like KK Smith, like he made a drop and it cost CJ Carr the interception. And so it's like he's drop prone kind of thing. Like you kind of just sense that.
I gotta say again, the false narratives. It wasn't a great throw. I'm not putting the interception was on CJ Carr, but it's like if you have to dive for a ball,
it's just unfortunate. It's an unfortunate play.
It's just an unfortunate play.
It happened. And good job by Carson Hobbs. Like good job by Carson Hobbs.
It's nobody's fault. It was a great play by Carson Hobbs. Great reactive play, right?
But I think
it was nobody's fault. It was not a thing. Like it's not a. I don't know. Like the thing is, okay, just with receivers, all this stuff sounds great. Bo Collins, man, looked great beginning of camp. I don't care about any of it. You got to make plays on, well, it's going to be on Sunday. I was going to say Saturdays. First game is on Sunday. The Sunday, and then the Saturdays the rest of the year. That's what it comes down to. And there's a lot of guys who show stuff in camp and, where you're at. Like, I will say, like, it's a different feeling with like a Fields compared to a Collins or whatever. But there was a lot of like, oh, maybe Collins has, turned a corner from where he is. Maybe he's going to be different than the player that he was at Clemson. And he really was kind of the same guy. And I think what the big difference with Fields and Pauling is like, hey, just be the same guys pretty much that you were at Virginia and Wisconsin. And they're going to be in pretty good shape. They're going to be in pretty good shape because, Great House is going to be very good. And I think really like we can talk about like the depth and stuff. And frankly, I just don't know until we see it, like, because I'm always intrigued when I hear like, when Matt's like reporting that, Logan Saldate is having a great camp. Like, that's great. I want to see, hopefully he is able to kind of, step up and see, where he's at. Like when you hear about, obviously Elijah Burris is having a great camp for a freshman, Micah Gilbert here, he's having a great camp as well. Like that's great. Now let's turn it into more and see where we're at. And I think that's the main thing, because the hypotheticals of it, we've seen too much of it at receiver at Notre Dame, and frankly, everywhere. It happens everywhere. If you go into any camp, because that's what the media, frankly, a lot of people don't understand line play. They're not like watching it super intently. They see who comes out first, second team, whatever. That's what they do. But everybody understands like, oh, this guy made a great catch in 7-on-7, right? Like this guy, this guy got an interception. This guy did this, right? Oh, 1-on-1s, he won this. So it's great to do it in those contexts, but it's like, well, where are you going to be at when it's actually happening? Because who are going to be the people who make plays against Miami and Texas A&M? Yeah, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, there was Irish Steel asked, of course, about not specifically from Irish Steel, but someone asked about Cam Williams finally showing a little flash. Look, I know what Matt reported on, and Cam Williams' name was not mentioned. That's just a fact. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what kind of camp he's having, but he talked a lot about a few receivers, and Cam Williams didn't come up. I know he's behind Malachi Fields to the boundary. I know he's behind Micah Gilbert to the boundary. That makes it difficult. We've talked about that, right? But he does need to just get better at the things that are the little things that make you a good receiver, right? That's where he needs to go. He looks amazing. Like his body type, the way that he's physically built, the way that the work that he's put in to build out his body, he looks great. So I don't think it's a lack of 1-2 in that area. He's just got to get better at the things that that make you a good receiver, right? And I said it before, Jamie, that the ranking does not matter anymore. Whatever his recruiting ranking came out, it's not relevant. He is in his second year at Notre Dame, and he is a Notre Dame football player. And there are things that he needs to do to get on the field. And he's got to get better at that, right? And he's got to get better at all the little stuff. That goes to the trust. If you're not good at the little stuff, then you can't be good at the big stuff. And so that makes it difficult.
Hold on. I just want to interrupt you for a sec too, because I think people shouldn't get down on this, because it's like wasn't reported about that in, he wasn't mentioned as like he had a great thing.
Let me be clear, because I'm not saying anything. All I can say is he was not reported. Therefore, I can't answer the question.
We can't say like, hey, this guy's tearing it up.
Yeah.
I do want to say, because I'm going to plug it in, listen to the podcast with JB, where he did mention that like he had heard a lot of great stuff about Cam Williams in terms of his development.
Yeah.
The thing is like everybody expects people to be like, well, this guy has to be like this right away, right? And the reality is that a lot of these guys, it doesn't happen in week one, even of the season. It changes. It changes as we go, right? And as the season goes along, because obviously there's injuries, there's also just guys who just get better and take different steps. It's like how Eli Raridan like made a big step like halfway through last season, and he was a junior, right? Like that's something that I think people have to realize, that even if someone isn't doing much in week one, like Junior Tuihalamaka didn't play any snaps in the first 2 weeks of the season, and then he played against like garbage time against Purdue, basically. You can end up being someone who really kind of helps the team. And I'll just say this about Cam Williams. First of all, looks like $1 million in that photo.
Yeah.
But where he's at the beginning, it doesn't really matter as much to me about when they get to mid-season and be like, where is he at then? Has he helped the team? Is he like, all of a sudden he does get reps and like they blew out a couple teams, and then he does, and then he makes plays and he builds confidence, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, we got to get him out here. Like I saw him also like working as one of the gunners on punt team, right? Like they were breaking up. Like, I mean, he should thrive in that role, like a Chase Claypool, right? Like a Chase Claypool did. It's the same thing. So I think that's the kind of thing that when I hear someone who I hear like positive things about, but he's like maybe not really in the mix, I'm like, well, where's that guy at like halfway through the season? Because I think there's a lot of things too, and like not to like just flip it to another section, but I think I bet in the first couple games, the rotation for the defensive line is going to be like more condensed than it will be later on. Like there'll be, more guys who play later on, and obviously there's probably going to be some guys who get banged up in those first couple games too.
Yeah.
And so I'm not just looking for like where the guys who play then, because that like Anye and Heinisch and Rubio and Dawson, those guys are going to be there. But then it's like, well, Elijah Hughes is like pushing. Where's Elijah Hughes halfway through the season? Where's Mookum halfway? Like all of that, right? Like that's, I think, is where you kind of want to see these guys, because when it comes down to it, who's going to help you win in December and January?
Yeah.
And which guys are then? Because like Heinisch, people weren't saying like Donovan Heinisch, whatever. He ended up being like a very key player for Notre Dame
when they got into games.
When they got into games. Yeah.
When it came to cases. Sometimes go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to do, because I saw Beef. He's posted this a couple times about the smoked meat. I guess he's a big smoked meat guy.
I saw. Okay.
He did it before, and I didn't answer it the last time.
No. Beef eater Andy. Let's just put it for people. Most important question of the day: can Jamie please weigh in on the best smoked meat sandwich in Toronto?
Honestly, it used to be at this place called Kaplansky's, and it closed down. I think the owner had some other stuff going on or whatever, but it was a good smoked meat place. They had an unbelievable smoked meat Reuben there. It isn't, Toronto's isn't a huge smoked meat. Montreal is the big smoked meat place. My wife is there right now, actually. Schwartz is the place to go in Montreal.
Schwartz's in Montreal for smoked meat. Put on those calories, right? Like pack on those calories. And then maybe work off those calories with something like pickleball. And if you need to work out some calories that you've put on, maybe you're doing the barbecues, right? The tailgates and that sort of thing. And you've got some calories that you need to work off, maybe a little older. You can go to H2 Pickleball, founded by Notre Dame alum Todd Hill. It's teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howes, a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans the Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. The first event will be a tournament before the Purdue game with medal rounds played on campus. A portion of the proceeds will go to the Rockne Athletics Fund to support Notre Dame student athletes. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or call him at 574-339-5195 to join the league, and be sure to visit H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka. So hit up H2 Pickleball and Todd, work off those calories. Jamie, let's talk about O-line for a second, because there's a little tidbit that's going on right now. Sullivan Absher, it was a little bit banged up. He's got a little bit of a lower body thing going on. And so we can what happens there is other people got to rep in. We're monitoring. Gerby Lambert is working at that right guard position. He's taking reps with the ones. And he's the type of guy that if you give a bunch of reps at a position and he learns that position, and he's as big as he is, and he's as nimble as he is, and a good athlete as he is, you got to be careful. He might just go ahead and win that job. So that's something we're going to be monitoring throughout the next week or so. Jamie, how do you feel about this? The possibility of Gerby Lambert at right guard.
I think that's great. Like, it's a great development. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to win the job. I just think that what people wanted to see out of Gerby Lambert, because everybody kind of wanted to hand him like one of the tackle spots, like, and not to say that that's, it's a little similar to CJ Carr or any guy who's like a highly ranked guy.
You want him on the field.
You want those guys to pan out because you know what that guy's ceiling is.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's rated as like a top 100 prospect for a reason. And then you see him, standing, in a drill next to Charles Jugusah, making Charles Jugusah look small. And you're like, this guy's a monster. And then, I was there. Yeah. So sorry to the no one guy on here who said, I haven't watched practice, because I was there day one of practice. And Gerby Lambert was one of the standouts of the first day of practice. He just looked really good. Like, first of all, just the fact that he was like there and available because he had, a shoulder thing in the spring, and just the way he moved at his weight at that tackle. And he just frankly looked a lot more comfortable than he did in the spring, just in terms of everything. I think that he's someone who is so big and so strong. Like, if he gets locked up in you, he can be a beast. Like, he can be absolutely. It's not like Sullivan Absher's a monster too. So it's not like, yes, he's 350. Sullivan Absher's like almost 330, right? So it's
not a small person.
He's not a small guy. It's not that kind of thing. But I think if Absher wins a job, great. But you want these guys who are that level to be competing right away. Because if he's not competing right away, then you're wondering, well, what's going on with his development? Is there what's holding him back? And sometimes it's injuries. Obviously, with Charles Jugusah, he would have played a lot more if he was healthy, right? Like, during this time. But whenever he's been out there, he's like put himself in a position. You can't say that, like, hey, they didn't hit. They were wrong about Charles Jugusah's talent. Like, no, they were right. Everybody's seen it. Everybody knows. And it's exactly why people want, like, Cam Williams to be, where he's at, or with like a Kyle Hamilton when he comes in and he delivers right away, and he's like that, or Michael Mayer, like those types of guys. That is Blake Fisher. That's exciting. That's something that I think people want to see. So when you hear that Gerby Lambert is, well, no, he's pushing for that job. And like, well, before they wanted to get him comfortable tackle, but hey, let's take a look at him at guard, because I think even if he doesn't win the job, absolutely, depth at guard is a huge question mark. And I would say it was like probably the biggest question mark after Jagasaw went down. Like, yeah, Absher might be the next guy in line, and that's great. But after him, it was like, well, maybe Chris Terek, but we don't know a lot about Chris Terek, right? We just don't know enough about him yet. And so if he was having a great camp or something like that, it's not like a bad thing if he was doing it over Gerby. But the fact that Gerby, because you just see him physically and you see how talented, that means like mentally he's picked it up. He can play multiple positions. And that's really, really exciting. And to me too, I think, and we talked about this, before we started recording, but when someone gets hurt or they're not like fully there all the time, and it's a camp battle, and someone else is like, okay, well now I'm going to use this opportunity to like push, kind of similar to like Anthony Knapp last year, right? Like, that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see that. You want to see guys taking it. Now they're like, rather than, oh man, I don't know what they're going to do here. Like, no, you want to see someone go out and win that job. And that's why you want to see like young guys kind of like step up and say, oh, I am capable of these, like having this bigger role. And I don't want to say like I'm rooting for him to win the job or Absher. I don't care. Like whoever is the best guy, great, right? But I think that if he wins that job, that is so intriguing to me, because if he's going there and he's playing really well, then it's like, well, Charles Jagasaw comes back.
Yeah.
What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
And maybe somebody else goes down and it answers for you. But like, those are the good problems everyone wants to have.
Yeah. Those are like in the Wire, the guy says those are some good kind of problems. That's the interesting part, is what happens if he starts and then Jagasaw comes back. But hopefully Notre Dame is in that position, right? Because that means their offensive line is doing really good. We're talking about injuries. I would be remiss, and I should have brought this up at the start. I kind of got distracted by the AP poll coming out, but Notre Dame did lose tight end Kevin Bauman and running back Kedron Young for the season with ACL injuries. The Kevin Bauman thing is also obviously like super devastating for the player. I mean, this is his third one, I believe. We had broke his foot. It's just his body could not do it, right? I mean, that's just the simple fact of it wouldn't let him compete at this level. It's obviously a bummer for him. He's going to stay around the program. He was set to face his brother against Miami in the opener, and it's very unfortunate that he didn't get a chance to do that. He did score a touchdown last year late in the game against Purdue. It was his only career touchdown. I think it's one of those things for him where like every time he played, people were impressed with how he played. He could just never stay on the field, and that's just a bummer. You feel for him, right? Well, as soon as we found out, it was like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious? Like, did this really happen again? And I'm sure he felt the same way. So, it's unfortunate for him. Kedron Young, fighting to, grab a role in the offensive backfield. Obviously, there's a lot of running backs that Notre Dame has at their disposal. But again, it's an unfortunate injury for that player. There's a question about Aeneas Williams, who's dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, and that means that Nolan James has gotten an opportunity there. So, just kind of your thoughts on that injury situation, and then what we can get into running back a little bit deeper in a second.
I mean, it's just absolutely heartbreaking for Bauman. And I remember back in 2021, so that would have been his second year. He redshirted that first year, and he came in with Mayer. which, this is year 3 for Mayer in the NFL coming up. And the fact that, Bauman was still at Notre Dame and he's year 3 shows like how long he had been there. But in that camp, he had a really, really good 2021 camp, and had this one practice where he was just like sunning guys in the end zone, like just like jumping over them and making like incredible contested catches. And everybody thought it was Mayer, and it was like, oh, because it was like on the far side of the field, and it was like, oh no, that's Bauman. Bauman's dominating. And it's just one of those things when a guy, I think he definitely had NFL potential, and when he doesn't even really get to live out his dream of actually like really contributing the way that he wanted to as a college football player, that sucks so much. I mean, he is going to get a Notre Dame degree. He already has his Notre Dame degree. I believe he's already doubled. He's got his master's, I believe, as well.
Yes,
so
he does.
He's going to be fine in his life and all of that, but you just hate to see it. I would say, at tight end too, I think there were some people, like I saw, someone on the board asked about like, who's Notre Dame's 5th tight end. And I was like, you're not going to need a 5th tight end. Like that is as much as it sucks that it happened for Bauman. I think it would be a lot different if they didn't take Ty Washington in the portal. Because now Ty Washington, he becomes like, it's a thing now. You have a real chance to be tight end 2 on the team, and it's obviously going to be between him and Jack Larson. I wouldn't say Flanagan's probably a little bit further away, just because
that's an Achilles, man. Like that's
no. Cooper Flanagan. I meant James Flanagan.
Sorry. Yeah,
Cooper Flanagan. I think he's going to would be late in the year. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't come back at all this year.
Right.
Based on when it happened. But I think they're already in a spot where they're probably going to be in 11 a lot. Like they are deeper at receiver. They can play with more backs now. They don't have to be as in 12 as much as they were. They're probably being a little bit less anyways. And they're definitely not going to be a team who's in 13 very often. Like, handful of times, maybe goal line kind of situations. If they really want to as well, if they don't feel good about the way those guys block, that's when you give, a tackle, and you put in a tackle in those situations, in goal line short yardage situations, and do that. Ty Washington, I heard he's having a really good camp.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's been better than they thought he was going to be right away. And to me, he looks like a good, athlete. And, he's a guy who obviously he had some mental health stuff at Arkansas, and really seems to be in like a really good position now. So that would be great if he's able to help the team this year. And we'll just see, because obviously, like, if Eli Reardon goes down, they're going to have some real problems there. But that would have been the case.
It would be the case regardless. Yeah.
Regardless.
Bauman doesn't solve that problem.
I do think that James Flanagan, like, I'm super, super high on James Flanagan. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. Wouldn't be surprised if he's like just keeps rising and rising as the season goes along, because he's going to play this year. Like he will play this year, because there's zero chance that guy's going to be a 5-year kid. Like he's not going to be, he's going to be someone by the time that he's in like his 3rd or 4th year. It'll be very evident that he's going to be an NFL player. And then I think, at running back, that with the Aeneas thing, obviously with Kedron is like, I think he was probably going to carve out a role, but how big of a role it was going to be, you don't know, right? We don't know for sure.
If we were to like game out how many carries each running back is getting this year, 30 maybe that he would get, if that, right? It's just hard to
I mean, he
It's
was
hard.
depth, right? And he was
Yeah.
depth, and he was going to be like, maybe he could have like earned more as the season went along. And I think that's something, to monitor. But like, I think they're pretty good still in the backfield. They still got 5 guys who are pretty good, and
They're really excited about Nolan James. They're
yeah,
really excited. About
and so I don't know if Aeneas Williams, like, one of the rare guys. First of all, there's not a lot of guys who play 200 plus snaps as true freshmen. Like, it's something that doesn't happen at Notre Dame very often. And actually, like, at Notre Dame, like, they haven't had a back do it in like quite a while. Like, as a true freshman, probably Josh Adams in 2015 was probably the last one.
Yeah.
So, and obviously part of that is like depth and stuff too. And maybe he wouldn't have been that played as much if Payne wasn't there. But I mean, I think, him being out gives a chance for like, hey, Payne to be like, hey, you know what? This was my job before. And there's that. And obviously Nolan James is like, hey, I think I could play and all that, right? Like, I think that's always a great thing. And even though Love got hurt last year, he still played through it. So they didn't really need to go to anybody else to have a bigger role. But I mean, I'm pretty confident in what they have. If like one of those guys has to be like RB2 at some point, I think they're going to be more than okay.
There's just so many options. I mean, they just have so many different ways to fill guys in, different kind of skill sets, and that's the optionality that they have at running back. Like, we're talking about this is before they even get to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, like we're talking about Williams, Payne, and Nolan James as the 3, 4, 5s, right? So there's a lot of options there. Just like VSR has a lot of options for your media company and whatever you might want for your social media page or your small business page, Jamie. So you can head over to VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emory Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadwazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long form video storytelling, social media management, website design. Look at all those options. There's so many options that you have. VSR Media also captures professional headshot, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. It's been notable to me that repping with the 2s in the defensive backfield are Mark Zachary and Dallas Golden. We know that they were very excited about Creed Thomas and what he was able to show in the spring. And look, maybe on that particular day it was a rotation or whatever it might be, but we've also heard really good things about Golden and Mark Zachary. Notre Dame might have hit again with like all 3 of their corners in the 2025 class. And if so, they're in for a big one there. Of those 3 guys, who do you kind of feel like they're playing different positions, so I guess, but I mean, they're playing different positions, but if like Dallas Golden is a better corner than, let's just say, Mark Zachary at boundary, and they need a field, you might just go to Dallas Golden and have him do the field. I mean, that's what they did with Leonard Moore last year.
Yeah.
So who are you kind of feeling like has the upper hand? Because I know everyone's kind of thinking about that 4th corner. Who do you feel like that might be?
Well, the other thing what we really don't know is Carson Hobbs has been working as like the second nickel, but he kind of was the 3rd corner in the spring.
Yeah.
I kind of still expect him to be like play outside at corner. Like, I don't think he's just going to be a backup nickel. That's it.
Hobbs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm talking about 4th corner.
Oh, like the 4th corner.
Like after Hobbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like who's going to be like out of the
No. After
that makes
Hobbs,
more sense.
So like after the 4 of Gray, Moore, Smith, and Hobbs, after those guys.
I mean, I would lean I can't even say, which I haven't heard of one of the guys looking better than the other at this point of like, hey, it's like a clear thing that like Dallas Golden deserves to be that guy or Zachary deserves to be that guy. I do think that like Zachary, the whole thing with him being like, he was 170, people were a little bit worried about it. He gained weight before camp. He's 175. It's definitely not unheard of for a guy to play at 175 at corner. And he is, him and Devontae Smith are the only like sub 6 foot guys out of their corners. But that's not reflective of his actual, like he's long, like he's got really long arms. So I don't think, I think I would probably lean towards Golden just because he's bigger. He's a little bit more physically developed, just from that perspective. And then I just kind of just preferred him a little bit more, just as a prospect. Not that I was really high in Zachary too, but I just, with Golden, there's so much versatility there that I was excited about it. So I would lean towards Golden. And I think Golden too, he could be the punt returner. Like there's that too. So it's like, if he's already going to kind of play that role, but I don't know. Like I think it's the fact that they were so complimentary of Cree Thomas in the spring. And the DBs are going to talk again.
The players soon. Were too. By the way.
But that's what I mean. Like the players are going to talk later this week, the DBs, and we'll hear what, I'm always interested there because you can tell some guys just don't say anything, and fair enough. They don't want to hype anybody up, but there's definitely a buzz when there is somebody who's different. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to kind of hear what, those guys like Gray and Moore have to say about those young corners. Right. And frankly too, like Schuler and stuff like that too. And all that, because, there was just so much buzz about Moore last year.
Well, this is when Morrison said he's going to be better than me.
Yeah.
It was this type of situation. Yeah.
So it's gonna, I don't know. I really want to hear what those guys say, because I think in general, when guys are getting praised a lot by the older guys, the vets, like this guy's good right now. Track record is pretty good.
Yeah. The players seem to know. Sly Fox just said Tay. So let's transition to the safety position. I think safety is very much in the same mold as D-line or interior D-line, whereas talk to me after game 4 kind of thing. Because I feel like there's it could just be that Tay Johnson ascends to that, he's too good not to start kind of thing. It could be true of him. It could be true of Luke Tolich. It could be true of Jalen Stroman, right? And I think Notre Dame has 3 of those guys along with Adon Schuler, where it's they've got really good options there. And it'll just kind of get sorted out by who plays better and who's more reliable in the moment. I think they're all going to kind of play. I think they're too good not to. Obviously, there's going to be huge special teams roles for all of them, really. And I think that's true of the interior D-line too. I think those are the 2 positions where it's kind of let's see how the games go and how that ultimately plays out. But I think Notre Dame's got to feel good about what they have kind of at both of those positions, with especially so with safety. Is that kind of your read as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, I look at defensive tackle and all the injuries they had last year too, that, I mean, obviously you're going to need the depth.
Yeah.
And guys, there were so many injuries there that you want to have 6 guys that can play, because you just never know if those guys are going to be able to get through the season. And it's not just Notre Dame where that happens. It happens a lot, right? And that's when that's why when you look at go back to 2018 and Notre Dame's defense in 2018 and how like really they were not in a good spot in terms of like as soon as like Myron Tagovailoa went down, and it was like, oh well, now they have Heinisch, and it's like, well, Jason Amendola, like you gotta play just like sparingly because they just need somebody.
Yeah.
And if Tillery, who like tore his shoulder that year and still kept playing, or Bonner, who wasn't like he wasn't a world beater, but he was like they needed him.
Yeah.
Like that could have been disastrous if those guys weren't able to play, but it didn't have to come to that situation, but it can get to that situation as we saw last year. And fortunately the guys that stepped up were good enough. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm really excited about the fact that Elijah Hughes has made a step, and that's what we're hearing, like that he's made a step. Like frankly, I think like he's a guy who's 300 pounds and carries it well. Like he doesn't look 300 in like a good way. Like he can probably get a little bit bigger, and he's still pretty quick. And I think he was still kind of learning, like they were talking about like a lot of like, well, they teach things differently here than they were doing at USC, and there was like an adjustment period. But obviously, like he must have like gotten over a lot of that adjustments and is stepping up. So I'm excited about guys like him and Mookum, and where they're at, and whether or not they can kind of step up. Like also Jason Onye being a guy who's a starter, I think is big for Notre Dame. Like they need him to be good. He has the most NFL traits out of anybody at the position, and they need him to play similar to the level that he was playing, especially as a pass rusher, but even a better run defender than he was last year. So that's exciting to me. And then I think too, with like that safety position, I really wonder how they're going to handle that, because they played 3 guys last year, right? Like Hurd played a lot. And then in certain situations too, when they didn't feel like against teams that were like, hey, they're going to play 10 personnel. It's like, well, Hurd's going to come in for Schuler there, right? So it'll be interesting if they, mix and match depending on who they're playing or what kind of like personnel they're going against and all that, because we've kind of already talked about how Talek is a little bit more like Schuler and kind of a little bit more of a that boundary safety, a little bit better fit there. But Jalen Stroman, I think that's a really, really good thing that he's pushing and getting reps with the ones, because you never want it to be a situation where you're taking a guy like that and you're like, man, this guy hasn't earned it. He hasn't lived up to what we thought he would be, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, and it's more complicated because last year Hurd was the second nickel, whereas this year it's a corner, not a safety. So again, it's easier to get Hurd on the field in that case, more so than like the Tay Johnsons. I mean, Tay Johnson has a little bit of that corner. He played a little bit at the end, but Hurd had played nickel, and he had played a lot of that man coverage that Notre Dame's used to. He did that against Northwestern. He didn't really do that. Or the other guys haven't really done that, right? Like Luke Tolich isn't a guy you see playing a ton of man. I mean, you could see it a little bit with Tay Johnson. Jalen Stroman, I don't know how much he's done that. So that's interesting as well. That's going to be interesting to track. But again, you get into games, you'll figure it out. Just like Notre Dame did on the offensive line last year, when it's like they had Sam Pendleton in there for the first, 3-4 games. And then they decided, no, like this needs to be different, right? And so then they went to Rocco. So
let me ask you this too, because I'm interested in this, and it's obviously something we'll learn more of as they start playing in the fall. But I'm interested in your take on if you think that they will, they want to do a lot of the same stuff that they did last year. Obviously, it'd be foolish not to. But you don't have an Xavier Watts back there. Are they forced to play differently in coverage because of that? Because he could be a single high player, and maybe they don't have a single high player this year. I mean, maybe that's Tay Johnson, and maybe that's what it is. But I don't know, right? But if you you don't have this trust with Tate Johnson or whatever. And like, maybe he's the guy who's getting looked off too much or whatever. Right. Like that I think will be interesting to me because as much as like, hey, they're going to have a good secondary. They're going to be very good against the pass
for sure.
But you do have to adjust your personnel and tweak what you do. And I wonder how much they're going to have to tweak that based on the personnel.
Well, not just that, but because, the one thing that is kind of overlooked is, like when we watched the All 22, right? Like I highlighted it a bunch of times. It's so prevalent how often Xavier Watts is making some sort of check or he's moving guys around and he's like, no, you got to be here. You got to be here. Like, are they less apt to get into the perfect kind of coverage because you don't have Xavier Watts back there to kind of make that decision, right? Like, so are you not in a coverage that you want to be in? Cause it's like, I don't know that we can actually make that check, right? Could a Don Schuler be that? Like, that's another question where it's like, not just from a physical talent standpoint, because Adon Schuler did it a little bit, right? Like Xavier Watts was in the slot a lot more than he was in 2023. Like he did a lot more man stuff. So they had a Don Schuler playing single high. I don't really worry about that. But the difference is that you always had Watts back there to make sure everything was just so. When we talked about it a ton about, man, this team does not have busts. They don't even have guys running free where it's like, oh, the quarterback missed it, right? The only time I ever remember it happening was a couple times against Georgia, where Georgia had them in just like, oops, like we kind of guessed wrong here. They had the running back and then they had the throwback where the wide receiver dropped it. Other than that, you just don't have guys running free in the secondary. And like that to me is super underrated because you see it all the time.
So underrated. You see it at every other team.
Yeah.
It's actually shocking. Like I think there was probably like you said, there's those two against Georgia. Could probably have a handful of more the rest of the year. Like that's insane.
Yeah,
that is insane. That is truly a level that is just unheard of. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, like that is Watts' superpower to me. It's like, man, they're never turning guys loose ever, and it's like that just can't. You can't, so like teams can't game plan for shots because it's like we can't scheme anything up against these guys. Like look at Louisville on the last play of the game. They try to throw the fourth down. They try to throw a deep ball. You have Watts over the top, and you had Jordan Clark right underneath. Like he threw in a double coverage. It's just not there, and everything under it. You can't scheme guys open against this defense. That to me is like the question of, are we going to see that? Are we going to turn on the tape and it's like, whoop, they got a free runner down the seam? Like Notre Dame was able to do against Louisville. When did that ever happen?
Yeah.
It just did not happen. And so that to me is the question is like, is that available to Notre Dame? And to your point, does that mean that they can't play the types of coverages, especially when we're talking about zone? Because when you play more zone, that's when, because part of the reason you don't get free runners is like you're in man.
You're a man and you can play man and stick with guys. And it's like,
yeah. But now we're talking about zone and we're talking about passing people off. And it's a different thing than Notre Dame was good at last year.
Communication is different. And there can be a drop off. I just want to say, just like, sorry to like kind of veer off on a tangent here, but like I'm seeing like way more people that I haven't seen in the comments here. And don't get me wrong, there's some wild comments by some of these people in here. Hey, but you know what? I just want to say, hey, welcome. Thanks for coming into and checking out the show. Even though some of these people I could tell like you've definitely have never listened to other shows because of some of the comments. But I appreciate that you're here.
Well, just the numbers that we have right now, like they're definitely going up in terms of viewership and everything. And look, hit that like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you like it, watch us again, share us with your friends and everything. We're always kind of the same. We're always kind of doing the same thing. This is what we are. And we're very excited. And the numbers are good. We've got a lot of new viewers. Like every show is like 50% new viewers, which is very cool. So yeah, man. Hit subscribe, hit the like. hit the notification bell. We can edit there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'll probably do another kind of fan show where I get into the comments and we get into the chat, and I'll throw up those comments. It'll be fan driven. I'll probably do another one of those shows this week, maybe Friday. So maybe we'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. We know there's some viewings going on later on in the week. So there's not going to be a ton of news. If there's something breaking, of course, we can just fire up the pod machine. We can do that. It could be me. But yeah, so that's going to be the schedule. We'll be back on Wednesday for our show. So we'll go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, probably this week. So, all right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. We will talk to you on Wednesday. Keep hitting and hustling.